Hello there, my name is Michael, and this is Dagon, a brand new game on Steam, which was released free, and as you can probably tell by the title, it is a Lovecraftian horror game, presumably about fish people. I don't know anything about it. Other than that, I just started it out today, and I want to check it out and see if it's worth paying the fight. It's free, but you can buy a special full version for $5, so I'm going to see what it's about, and I'm going in totally blind. Let's start. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden in order to find these secrets. Focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. You can also access all the found facts later. They will be available in the main menu. It's kind of odd that they went with a British voice actor for this because, I mean, they go for British so often, but H.P. Lovecraft is like a quintessentially American character, and they should really go for a sort of upper crust, northeast kind of American voice actor. Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
You know, if you're planning your last testament before killing yourself, I really feel like you should use proper penmanship. It shouldn't be hastily scrawled. So there's a morphine, I mean, I assume needle filled with morphine. I'm trying to figure out exactly the controls here, because it said to use a controller, weirdly. But I assume this is going to be like a point-and-click game, but I'm using my 360 controller. Oh, well, there we go. I can zoom in a little bit, but I can't really move exactly. That's odd. I'm going to quickly take a look at the controls, which I probably should have done beforehand. Other controller vibrate. No, there is no listing of what the controls are. That is peculiar. Okay. Actually, can I use... Oh, I can actually look around with the mouse. Maybe I'm supposed to be using that, because that's odd.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Darn Krauts and their piracy of the high seas. Oh, actually the controller works now. Kind of. Firing on him. Take that, Jerry. You can tell that Kaiser that was for me.
At its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
That was not much of a battle, but okay. Can't really seem to move. I can only look at things. I mean, it's beautiful. I love the water out there. It looks lovely. Okay. What flag? This is Imperial Germany flag? Oh, the Huns were Central Asian nomads who established dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids. Ooh, I got some breath. Who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July 1900, before they embarked to China to fight in the Boxer Rebellion. Should you encounter the enemy, you will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls under your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves. One that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever dare look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. A little bit more about that. The Germans definitely committed heinous war crimes in their African colonies just a couple of years after that HUNS speech. They committed one of a horrendous colonial genocide against the Herero and Nama. And was the Nama? Yeah, the Herero and Nama people in what's now Namibia. So Wilhelmine Germany during the Second Reich was brutal and vicious. Obviously not as much as the Third Reich, but it was still fertile soil for them to grow on. Okay, and what's this?
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Interesting. I want to know now if anyone actually escaped after being captured by a submarine. That would be interesting. I mean, it seems very unlikely, but who knows. I also wanted to mention, by the way, that the Allies during the First World War also violated the laws of war by disguising warships as merchant vessels. They called them Q ships, and when the Germans would surface, as they were legally obligated to do before firing and asking to disembark the crew, the British would suddenly reveal the hidden gun emplacements on the disguised ships and attack the Germans, which was not really very fair either. What's this? Is this nummies? Oh, I was just gathering my stuff.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
Ooh, that's so nice. It was really stupid of him to do this. Maybe he's already gone insane because of the Lovecraft.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Why did you jump into the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you dunce? For goodness sake. Whee! Ooh. Maybe I can wish upon a star.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
This is a very pretty game. Look at how nice this is. Ooh, more nummies?
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
The heaving, pendulous vastness. Bouncing and bubbling
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Ah! Squiddy boys! Ah! Tentacles! Oh my god! What do I do? Ah, squiddy boys! Squiddy boys.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
It's plastic islands. It's growing out the Pacific.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
Well, Lovecraft probably thought that you can only convey this type of horror in words, and trying to visualize it is impossible.
There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Is there like an upper level of Rillier? Or I think the Dagonite city is pronounced Yehanichla? I'm looking at it right now. I have no idea how to pronounce that. But anyway, that kind of like that spiral thing kind of reminds me of the shell monster in Bloodborne when you go into the fishing village. Oh, sucking noise. Ugh.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
Look at that big splashing thing.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Got plenty of food, I guess.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
It's a can of sardines up there. Seafowl? Is that what seagulls are called? I mean, are they fowls? They're not chickens, are they?
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
How could you be rescued? This came up from the depths. Okay, get your stuff.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
I do like the slow burning insanity here, because a lot of people think of being insane as sort of a condition of the other, and that they couldn't possibly reach that state, but honestly every human being can be made insane by the proper conditions, like war or imprisonment or abuse or some sort of horror being visited upon them. So it's really a state that any of us could theoretically enter depending on conditions around us. And I like that slow burn quality of it, of gradually creeping up.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
What is that thing? That's bizarre looking. I guess these are more... Ew. Hellish monstrosity creatures now. Alright, is that Dagon over there? Is he spludging and blubbing over there? Because I straight up killed Dagon at The Witcher 1, so, you know. And actually... Oh, it's a whale. Maybe he fell down here with a pot of petunias that materialized in space. My Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy homies will get that one. I guess, you know, let's go see... I guess we also killed Dagon in Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, now that I think about it.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
This kind of reminds me of an episode of Ren and Stimpy where they go to an alien planet and go to a big hill made of lost socks. Ew. What's this spludgy thing? The horrors of the ocean. The creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of R'lyeh was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean, because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many peculiar organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far, the Mariana snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, more than 26,000 feet below the ocean's surface, in never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures, hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish, the fangtooth, or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's hard not to find some irony in this. I think also there was a basis for the xenomorph in something deep underwater that could, like, impregnate a creature with its young and have it burst out of it, although I'm not sure about that. If that was somewhere else or if that was down in the depths of the ocean, too.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Wah, wah, wah.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Ew, it probably stinks of fish. How does he go to sleep?
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
I dreamt of naughty flapper girls with their ankles shamelessly bare.
Ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain.
Neil Gaiman keeps making fun of H.P. Lovecraft for using the word gibbous, but I like it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the word gibbous. It just means a big moon.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
That's when Cthulhu gets you, when you're sleeping.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
If you're about to die from Lovecraftian entities, I think you should cash in all of your, $50 words, like gibbous and eminence and eldritch. You don't want to go out with some kind of crummy little, like, oh crap, I'm dead. You want to, add a little pathos to the occasion. Alright. He's never going to run out of food.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
Can't cook it, though.
But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine.
Illumine, perfect. Love that.
I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost.
There's no devil. What are you talking about, Paradise Lost? There's just the Lovecraftian demons.
And of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
It's a beautiful sky over there. It's lots of blue. It's lovely.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
But everything would be all slimy and squishy.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Okay. I may retract something I said before. Declivity, don't, I don't know about that. You don't need to use every single ridiculous word. You can just say I went down into the squatchy pit.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath,
Can't see anything.
gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
Stygian,
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
It's an obelisk.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Smack it with a jawbone. See what happens. I can't help but thinking that this should be a point-and-click game. Like, I'm using the controller and it's so weird. I mean, it doesn't... Well, anyway. Come on. I mean, you're going to have to go across this broken, slimy, rocky ground at night. That seems kind of like a bad idea. Yep,
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Alright, let's go over to it.
Despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientists' or archaeologists' delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
I like to know who he is. This kind of reminds me of The Terror, this good TV show about this sort of Lovecraftian trip that these lost Arctic explorers went on in the 1830s or 40s. Okay. Splish, splish, splash, sploosh. That's Dagon splooge, by the way, you're stepping in. Every footstep.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Sean? Not shown? Sean?
But a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
Drink that water.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith.
Cyclopean's another big word for Lovecraft.
Surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Gargantuan, Brobdingnagian, Titanic, enormous. Maybe some heathen race from the ancient days made marks upon it to worship the old ones. Maybe this entire game is just like pro-sex with fish people. That's possible. That could be the secret message of the developer.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
It just looks like marks of fishy boys and sharks.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
I didn't move that camera, by the way. The game did. Is that Cthulhu there at the middle? Can't quite tell.
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
You don't video something is really real until you video it. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later work, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountain of Madness and the Nameless City, journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, The Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities worshipped based on real events, and mythologies, the Mi-Go in The Whisperer in Darkness. Who were the Mi-Go based on? Weren't the Mi-Go like fungi from Yugoth or something? What were they based on? It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also include in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. Tokioki. Go look at that boy.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
Gustave Doré was a famed French illustrator in the 19th century. He made some really amazing artwork. Highly recommend checking it out if you don't know him.
These things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
Fishy boy men?
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
One of them had red hair and was using a fork to comb it.
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well.
They look like the Drew, or the Drow from Morrowind.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
I mean, I can speak of them. They got tentacle legs. Got straight up tentacle legs. It's not that hard. Like, what was that boy? In, Wilbur Whateley.
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Bulwer Lytton? I don't know. Ah! Spooky faces on the bottom. I think one of those on the right looks like the guy from, Most Honestly Cantina that was playing in the band.
Were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips. Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall.
Bulging. Never mind that part.
Enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Is Dagon the size of a whale?
I say, their grotesqueness and strange size.
These are big fish boys.
But in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Maybe they were the imaginary cods of some primary fishing or seafaring tribe, huh?
This descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
So they branched off from humanity in the Homo habilis stage or something? So they're not Homo sapiens, technically?
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What? What do we say? I'm scared. What are we looking at? Is it Spooky Boys?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
Bah!
the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Is it Dagon? Is it the creature from the Black Lagoon? I'm scared. I'm getting spooked out. I'm spooked! I'm spooked!
It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Polyphemus, I think, was a titan who might have lived underwater. I'm not sure about that.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, its hideous head, and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
This is what Protestants think Catholic services are like.
I think I went mad then.
You might have been mad before that.
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
That's convenient. Maybe that fish made sweet love to you. Now you're gonna have a fish baby. That's what I bet happened. Ew. Sort of pulsing, that mound thingy there.
I
look at that
sang
siphon.
a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
To sing? Splitch, sploosh, squatch.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
You could hardly get damper. I mean, it's already pretty moist.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
That's unlikely, but
Brought
okay.
thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
There was these fish people there, and they wanted me to have sex with them all, and have some fish babies, and it was all crazy, and you know, I don't know what was going on.
Evil in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
Yeah, no
Nor
kidding.
did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
It's probably for the best. Look, Jeebus. Seems a pretty nice asylum. Ooh, what's this? The journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism in 1915. He started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon, published in 1917, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in the wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. But that was before nuclear weapons existed. So, you know. Time to leave the asylum.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist.
Ethnology was the precursor to anthropology and had a lot more Victorian racist elements before they were banished in the mid-20th century by people like Margaret Mead.
And amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
I guess that is where Dagon comes from. The Dagonites, I mean Dagonites isn't exactly the right word, but the people that worship Dagon were other inhabitants of the Holy Land that were warring against the Israelites in ancient days, and the Philistines may have been descendants of the famed Sea Peoples that led to the Bronze Age collapse, where civilization in the Middle East was entered a dark age for more than a century, and much writing and history was lost during that era. What is this? Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in the Assyrian poem, and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. These kind of odd statues here of something or other. Kind of looks like a person on the left, and I'm not sure what that one is there on the right. Is this my office? How much money do I have? Jeez. Am I a millionaire? Was I like an officer or something? Okay, let's take a look at my armoire or chest of drawers or something over here. I mean, I'm doing good for myself for being an insane fishy boy.
Soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
I wanted a lunatic ethnologist. August Derleth in the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic. To the Cthulhu Mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world as approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu Mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. And, yeah, I mean, the whole good versus evil thing, and I think Derleth also assigned elemental forces to the various Cthulhuoid entities, like Cthulhu as a water deity and so forth. It didn't really make a lot of sense, and unless you're really digging into the myth of Cthulhu and learning about Derleth, it doesn't really come up anymore. And I think broadly his idea in the 50s, after over a decade after Lovecraft had died, to sort of create in his own works of the fiction a good versus evil dichotomy, has mostly been forgotten about now. So it's not really all that important, to be honest. Where else should I look? This is the giant room. What is my... Did he say what his job was? This is incredible. Whoa. Whoa. Something happened there. Like the camera flipped back or something. Oh, that's what I have to click on. The clock. There we go. It's maybe a bust of Pallas, as in Edgar Allan Poe. She only has one eye. That's kind of odd. Time ticking on into the future. Is there anything to look at over here? I'm not getting any prompts. But I'll check back here just to make sure there wasn't anything I missed. Nope. Maybe that is a faded bust of Pallas. Okay. Don't really know why I walked over there. There's nothing to click on as far as I saw.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
John Carpenter's The Thing, which was oft something. John Carpenter's The Thing was a incredible 1982 film that was heavily influenced by Mountains of Madness and Lovecraft. Delicious.
The drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Surcease is acceptable.
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco. Good. Even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will, I am rather in favor of prohibition. The prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. The Spirit of Revision, Lovecraft's letters to Zelia Brown. So Lovecraft was a teetotaler and was more or less, seemed lukewarm in his favor towards prohibition. You don't have to like alcohol to hate prohibition.
I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm.
You mean your crazy fish dream when you were burning alive in the sun of the Pacific Ocean?
Mere freak of fever,
Maybe.
as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war.
Maybe.
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
I say bring it on. Sink the whole world. I think humanity's too sick to survive, like that character in, I created the evil building that summoned Zool in the Ghostbusters movie. It's just too sick to survive. We better not click on Ellis Island. I don't think Lovecraft would like that.
The end is near.
The squishy end. There are fishy boys coming. And I do mean coming.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Dagonites don't really look too scary. I mean, you could probably kill them if you had a gun. If you had a gun, I mean.
God, that hand! The window! The window!
Can't reach the window. This is like a Shadow Versus, sort of. Kind of thought he was going to open the window, not leap out of it. Thank you for playing. We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. Well, I think that was really fun. I had a heck of a... I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really good introduction to the world of Dagon and Lovecraft, if you've never experienced it before. And yeah, I think I'm going to check out the DLC at some point, because it sounds pretty cool. My name is Michael. Let me know what you think of this experience, if you think this is a fun little free game. It is free, so, you know, even though it's pretty short, it's certainly an enjoyable sort of interactive movie experience of Lovecraft, which may be the best way to experience it. And yeah, let me know what you think of this.